Welcome to the Adventures in Learning podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Diane Jackson Schnorr, and today's conversation is very special. We're welcoming Reserve Manager Kevin Jolliffe from Wild Tomorrow to join us, and Kevin is such a fascinating human. In the time that I was over with Wild Tomorrow, I learned so much about birds and hippos and how you tend the wilderness, how you rewild. But he's deeper than that. He knows about everything, whether it's orchids or crabs, the Indian Ocean, or the giraffes running in the backyard. Kevin is your person. So I am so excited to have this conversation with him. Wonder, curiosity, connection. Where will your adventures take you? I'm Dr. Diane, and thank you for joining me on today's episode of Adventures in Learning. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be with you guys.
So, Kevin, you truly are one of the most broad-minded naturalists I know. Like, your interests are very wide-ranging. How did you come to be with Wild Tomorrow, but sort of what was it that got you into nature in the first place?
I guess what got me into nature in the first place was being the youngest in the family by nearly 10 years. And kind of the odd man out in the neighborhood, being 2 years younger or 2 years older than all the other kids in the neighborhood. So I kind of learned to entertain myself, and my parents, the rest of the family are all nature lovers. So I made myself a butterfly net, and I got binoculars and a bird book and things. And so I learned how to entertain myself with nature, so to speak. The family, all enjoy gardening. So there was always a natural tendency to work in the garden and get involved with plants and what have you. And that grew into obsession with orchids. But I think that general sort of interest in everything around me in nature was the spark. And then we were fortunate enough to live close to sort of the back of the local botanical gardens in my hometown, which had a back entrance, more sort of wild bush rather than tended gardens, which were down at the main entrance. And so that was kind of the extension of the backyard. So I'd run around there and, go and catch butterflies and collect birds' eggs and go fishing and do all sorts of things and exploring and, the things that kids should be doing these days.
And then you went on to become, you went to college to learn about this too. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. I went to university and did a diploma in nature conservation for 3 years. That's where I met my wife. And we've been together ever since. Yeah, that gave us a good grounding. It was hard work. We thought it was going to be easy just learning about the birds and the bees, but that wasn't so. But we had a really good grounding, and we can pretty much study conservation anywhere we were.
And you've traveled the world. You've left South Africa, you've traveled the world, and you've done work in all sorts of places on really fascinating and varied subjects. Because if I remember correctly, you've worked with sea turtles and you've done research on all kinds of other things before you came back. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, we were given an amazing opportunity to go and work in the Seychelles, which we ended up staying about 5 years. We were the conservation managers on a small private island called Cuisine Island, and absolute paradise, full of sea turtles, one of the few places in the world where sea turtles come to nest during the day. Also, a lot of critically endangered land birds, a lot of seabirds. So it was fantastic, like dream job sort of thing. Going out there, doing a lot of sort of reef assessments and things. Yeah, that was fantastic. And then from there, we went over to the Bahamas for 2 years as I was landscape manager for David Copperfield.
Oh wow!
And that gave us it's also another dream job, but. It gave us the opportunity to travel around the States a bit as well. So we got to visit Peru and go up Machu Picchu and sort of tick all the bucket list things we'd like to do and go and visit Alaska. And childhood dream of mine was to see the salmon run. So I got to see that and fish the salmon run.
Oh, exciting!
But it was fantastic. It gave us amazing opportunities to see part of the world.
And how did you wind up working with John and Wendy and Wild Tomorrow?
So Interesting story. I was actually at the time unemployed. I'd been working with the university, the local university, as a field technician with their pollination ecology department, literally being paid to go and look for orchids for them to study. And so when COVID hit, they had to let me go. And so we were literally down to like the last couple of cents in the bank account. And then a friend of mine, actually the head of department at the university I studied at, he found the job application. And so I applied and I got the job. So I'm very, very happy. And I've always wanted to work in this area. My aunt and uncle farmed in this area in the 1980s and 1990s. So I've got a special love for this particular area where we are. So it's fantastic to be here.
And for those who don't know, what does a reserve manager do?
It's like the $1 million question, and there's no easy answer. So a lot of the work is maintenance work. So maintaining the integrity of the reserve, which is obviously your fences. So if your fences aren't good, then your animals could escape or poachers can get in. So part of my job is obviously infrastructure maintenance, staff management, security, so the anti-poaching aspect, as well as the land management or habitat management, and then the wildlife management and monitoring all falls under me. So yeah, it's quite a diverse field that I take care of, but I don't feel like I work a day in my life. It's my dream job.
Which is a joy. So I was going to say, maybe walk us through and I know there are no typical days because every day is different on the reserve, but what might be a typical day?
As you say, no day is the same, and there's never a dull day in the bush. So if you make plans, something will pop up to to disrupt your plans. But a typical day would be sort of checking in with the teams that I have. So I have a ranger team that are doing patrols, anti-poaching patrols. I've got a team that do maintenance work. So whether they trimming trees back on roads, or trimming fences, or spraying fences, or fixing roads. And the alien plant team is obviously, cutting and clearing alien invasive plants for to improve our habitat and what have you. So most of it's sort of checking up on what's going on, checking if there's any issues that have cropped up. A big component is actually keeping the teams on the go, which means if they need certain things and equipment and things, I can, get into town and get that, just so that the momentum isn't slowing down, if that makes sense. So as long as they're equipped with what they need, then I'm happy. So it often means I'm running around doing 100 things in a day, but everything on the ground is running smoothly.
And on top of all of that, you're stopping to educate the random stray visitors like myself who pop up and ask questions too.
Well, it's lovely to share knowledge. Obviously, I share what I know. I don't know everything, so but I love to share the knowledge, and it's great to sort of share with what we've done in the relatively short time span that I've been with the company, which is only just over 5 years. It's I love to share knowledge, and it's great to pass it on, and hopefully it gets passed on from others. But
There have been a lot of changes in the last 5 years too. I mean, so much of what you all started with was pineapple farms, right? And you're working on rewilding. How has the land begun to change and shift back?
so yeah, so and more portions of land have been added to the original piece. So it's almost doubled since I've started, which is incredible. Some of the areas, the old original areas that were under pineapples, they kind of restore themselves as long as you can keep your finger on it, and you can manage it accordingly, whether it's by fire or grazing. We try to sort of speed up the process because man has destroyed many places. So if man can try and speed up the process, would be great. So that's the rewilding process. And obviously with that, you get some undesirables coming in, so alien invasive species. So we try and keep those in check. We've got a nursery that we started for the sand forest restoration work, which again is, we'll plant these trees, but we'll never see them looking like trees in my generation. So it's really planning for way down in the future. So we have, those projects on the go. which are really sort of, custodian projects. How do we leave a legacy for the next generation to carry on with? But nature will find a way of restoring itself as long as you can make sure the right things are in the right balance. And it's all about balance at the end of the day. But it really is an incredible journey to be on.
And I remember you saying something to us when we were there that has stuck with me ever since. We were concerned about a giraffe who had metal in its leg, and we were questioning what was going on. How do you manage that? And you were so good about that, because I remember you took the pictures that we had taken, and you were able to sort of explain what the balance was, that if man has caused the problem, then man does everything we can to try to fix it. But if it's something that would have happened naturally in nature, then you let nature run its course. And I imagine that's a hard philosophy to be able to run all the time, but it sounds like it makes sense. You can't intervene in everything. Is that accurate? Did I get that right in terms of what I picked up from that?
Hello from www.designerminidoodles.com, home of the best quality mini, micro mini, and toy-sized golden doodle puppies, as well as miniature Bernedoodle puppies and miniature Cavapoo puppies in the United States. Here at Designer Mini Doodles, we have a nanny, and we are able to fly our puppies anywhere in the country, allowing you to get some of the best bloodlines from top quality breeding program in the United States.
Yes, that's exactly it. My view on it is that if it's caused by man should intervene or should help to fix the problem. If man caused the problem, but if it's a natural thing, then let nature take its course. In many cases, the animals do recover; they're incredibly resilient. But in some cases, they don't, and you have to take the big picture. And do you have predators that could naturally, would naturally catch that animal because it would be slower being an injured animal or what have you. In the event that you don't have predators, then you occasionally have to take that hard decision and say, for the benefit of the animal and to, prevent it from, excessive suffering that it wouldn't normally have had if you had predators, you need to make that decision of, potentially euthanizing those animals. Obviously, that's a decision we don't take lightly, particularly if it's a big sort of charismatic species like a giraffe. But you also need to look at, have you got a large number of giraffes? Is one loss going to significantly impact the rest of the population? And those are all, questions one has to ask beforehand. If you've got a good population, then the impact is very minimal. Do you have, additional males or females? So, these decisions aren't made lightly, but also one has to remove emotion out of the decisions, because nature can be cruel, and that's something that many people do struggle with. So yeah, it's
Especially
one of those
children's
things
authors and illustrators.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that you need to see it in its context.
That makes a lot of sense. And you were part of sort of bringing the giraffes back to Wild Tomorrow and to the reserve. What species have you been able to bring back because of the work that you're doing? Because it's not just the big charismatic ones like the giraffes. There have been other populations that have come back as well.
Yeah, so Wild Tomorrow brought back a number of species, or reintroduced a number of species onto the property that should have been there. So I think giraffe was one of them, zebras. I think Inyala and Impala had already been there. In my time, we brought on kudu, which was one of the species that weren't present in the past. It should have been there because the niche occurred or was there but hadn't been filled. So that was the major sort of missing link. But we've also done reintroductions of serval cats, in the area, and we've had collars on them so we can, track their movements, which is fantastic. But as you restore a habitat, animals will move into that habitat that should be there. So as long as, once you can get that available habitat, the animals will move in. And if you can protect them from poaching, or any other aspects, then, those animals will or should thrive in the environment if it's well managed.
And how hard is it to protect them from poaching? Because I know that security is part of what you do as well. And how big is the poaching issue and what are the challenges?
Yeah. So touch wood, we don't have a huge poaching issue. We thankfully don't have rhinos, although I would love to have rhinos, but they come with a big price tag with regards to the level of security they require. So you need to have armed guards, patrolling day and night, because it attracts a different caliber of poacher, which are, armed with firearms. Most of the poaching that we are dealing with are for bushmeat. So they're coming in and they're setting snares, which are wire nooses that they put in the bush, and are indiscriminate, so they'll catch whatever's in the area. And then, then they will take that meat and they'll sell it in the community. So, we get certain areas are more prone, where they border onto the community. But compared to some of the other reserves, we get off very lightly. And that's also, I think, because we have a good relationship with our community. We help them. We support a number of creches and an orphanage in the community. So we're doing our part. And we know who those poachers are. We get the canine unit comes to help. We can track them right back to the houses they live in. So we know who they are. And just last week we managed to catch 2 of them red-handed. So, which is a great feather in the cap and a great collaborative effort between my guys and the neighboring reserves and the guys operating the drones and everything. So it was a fantastic effort.
And I imagine you just alluded to working with the community. You employ so many people from within the community as well as part of what you're doing. I imagine that helps to build that strong relationship.
Yes, that's correct. So we try and, as far as possible, to employ anybody from the local community as close as possible to us. So I think we are a major employer in the area, apart from the other pineapple farms. And we try and help where we can. So I was recently helping the local herders, cattle herders. They're trying to enlarge their, area of grazing. And there's, some sort of areas that are bush encroach. So the grasslands are getting smaller and smaller because, fast growing trees are taking over these grasslands. So they've asked for help. So we've gone and given them advice as to, which trees to clear and which ones not to clear, and how to clear that it doesn't damage the grass, and also, supply them with, knapsack sprayers or backpack sprayers, correct chemicals that will only kill, the trees, because they were already using chemicals, but they were killing everything. So just a bit of, upskilling, if that makes sense, so they can see that we're not against them. Obviously we don't want to see habitat destroyed, but there's a way of doing it where you have minimal impact for maximum reward and minimum effort for maximum reward at the end of the day.
That makes a lot of sense. Imagine a space where curiosity drives innovation, where empathy fuels collaboration, and where learning feels less like a task and more like an adventure. My message isn't about adding more to your plate. It's about changing how you see the plate entirely. I'm Dr. Diane Jackson-Schnorr, and through the power of purposeful play, I equip leaders, educators, and organizations with the tools you need to unlock creative problem-solving, deepen human connection, and build resistant ecosystems of empathy and innovation. Attendees will walk away not just inspired, but empowered, with immediately usable strategies to spark curiosity in teams, to lead with empathy, and to infuse learning into their everyday cultures. You'll learn how play isn't child's work. It's the secret weapon of the world's most effective leaders and change makers. This is not a feel-good talk that fades by Monday morning. It's a movement, a shift in how we engage people, solve problems, and lead meaningful change. My talks and workshops are shaped by decades of experience in education and a transformative message that connects across sectors. Whether your audience is corporate, educational, or nonprofit, they'll leave ready to rethink what's possible, both personally and professionally. Because when we learn and lead through play, we don't just change organizations, we change the world. Check it out at drdianeadventures.com. What's one of your proudest things that you've been part of while at Wild Tomorrow?
I think one of them would be the nursery that we've established, for the sandforest trees, which started sort of in my backyard and mushroomed into a smaller nursery, and now it's 3 times the size that it used to be. We must have close on 20,000 trees in there now. So that's kind of like my little pet project. It's my 7th nursery that I've established in my career, and hopefully the last one. But it's been very rewarding. There's no textbook on how to grow these trees, so it's kind of trial and error, and it's great to go out into the forest and see what's got fruit and prep the seeds and plant the seeds. And it's great to be able to plant something and watch it grow. That's I think that's probably my favorite part.
I love that. You said something earlier that I've been thinking a lot about too, when you were talking about your own experiences as a kid and being out in nature and being connected to the world. I think that in so many ways we're disconnected these days, particularly if you don't live in the bush, if you're living in a city or even in a town. You've seen America, so you know what it looks like here. Parents are afraid and they don't let their kids go out and do the things that you did. How can we help them, I guess, first of all, become in touch with nature themselves? And second, loosen the reins a little bit to let their kids have that kind of childhood that I know your kids have had, my kids have had, and I would wish for every kid.
I think it starts with kick your shoes off and walk on the grass and feel the sand and the mud between your toes and the grass under your feet. And just start getting grounded and just lie on the grass and listen to nature, even if it's in the town or in the garden or in the park. Just lie and be quiet and listen to it. If you can get into the woods, even better. Just listen to the trees, the leaves rustling in the trees, or the birds or something like that, and you'll feel that calmness come over you. And I think that's the disconnect that most people don't have. You just switch your phone off, you'll survive without it, and sit and be quiet and enjoy. But I think a big thing, take your shoes off, get your feet in the grass and feet in the sand and the mud. Mud is clean dirt, not dirty dirt. You can wash it off. And that's really important. And, even when we used to go gardening or whatever, it was, always, I never wear gloves. It's always good to feel the soil in your hands. Feel that, smell it. It's important. And we all need it. We all came from nature. We all need nature. And it has a very sort of restorative effect on people. Once you're able to switch off and sort of cut the hustle and bustle of the world out. We all need it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I've taken to sort of giving myself permission to just stop and declare it's time for a nature emergency. And that's where you go, I have to sit and watch this dung beetle for 5 minutes, or, I have to just sit and look at the flowers grow or listen to the blue jay on the wing or whatever it is. But by giving yourself permission to level it up to the same level of emergency that we put on our phones, it's like, nope, this is an emergency. I have to do this right now. Even if it's 5 minutes, it adds that urgency to this is a priority, and it makes a difference.
So I stayed at John and Wendy's place the other day, when we were out for the gala event last year. And on the top of their building, there's a little garden. And when you walk on top there in that little garden, I mean, obviously all the trees had no leaves, but yeah, the sound of the city is sort of gone, or it feels gone. And I thought that's like the little safe haven that everybody needs. Just go up there, sit and be quiet and just listen, and you can hear the rustle of the leaves, and there's a few birds flying around, but that noise of the city seems to sort of dissipate below you. And I thought, you have to have those places where you can just zone out a little bit.
And they
So,
exist
yeah,
everywhere. You
it's
just have
important.
to give yourself permission to find them.
Yes, I noticed.
But they are there. I mean, they absolutely are everywhere. And I know one of the lessons I learned when I was in South Africa was never, ever refuse an opportunity to go out on the truck with Kevin if he's going somewhere. My very favorite, my favorite thing wasn't on our schedule at all. And it was the day that you let John and Haley and I join you for a tour because you guys were doing the burning and you were checking out what had happened. And I'm so glad I hopped in the truck with you that day because that was the day that we found that raft of hippos and just sat on the bank, no camera. Hadn't brought the big camera that day, literally had just my phone. And we spent half an hour sitting on the bank watching hippos. And it was probably the most amazing experience of a host of amazing experiences. And it wasn't planned. It was just being with 4 people who were willing to sit and be quiet and listen. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's what's so amazing. Yeah, that's what's so amazing is that you never know what's going to be around the corner. But like you said earlier, for me, with sharing my knowledge, it's having you guys come out and you're the sponges and to see you guys sort of soaking it all up and asking questions and being engaged. That's great from my side. But it also we see these animals or we see this every day, so we kind of get used to seeing the odd hippos here and there. But it's great to see it through your eyes, which is even more special from my side. Is that it sort of grounds us as well, because we sort of take a lot of these things for granted. We live in an amazing place and we see them every day, but it's really cool to see the excitement from people that haven't seen giraffes or zebras or all the inyala around. So it's really exciting to be able to see the excitement in our visitors that come out.
And it really is exciting. I know there were a couple of days where we were driving and we were like, Kevin, you have to stop. And you're like, it's just another Nyala. But we couldn't help ourselves because it was so fascinating. So if you could wave your magic wand and convince the rest of the world to care as much about nature and conservation as you do, how do we go about getting people to care like that?
That's a difficult question because everybody's got their own, I won't say their own priorities, but their own idea of what they want to achieve. And, not everybody has money to donate towards conservation, so they can do that. But, time can be, donated to work in a conservation area, or even just if you're on board with the idea, share the idea with everybody around you and say, hey, there's a place that's doing a lot of good work. But I think also, try and sort of live holistically, live within nature, if you can. Those small decisions go a long way. If you look at the destruction around the world, John and Haley have just come back from Southeast Asia, and the destruction from all the palm oil plantations. And then when you look into it and you think, well, just about everything has got palm oil in it. So how do you, not use one thing? Those are decisions we all have to, make, on our own. But again, it becomes harder and harder to choose organic, and often organic is more expensive. So I don't think it's just, choosing what to buy and what not to buy. It's how you live your life at the end of the day. And if you can't physically help, at least you can get on board and say, hey, this is something worth, contributing to. If I can't help with money, I can help spread the word. And that goes a long way, and then, if you want to, hey, come out and see what we do, that's the best way. And then you can really spread the word.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there's no easy answer. For each person, it's a different calling and a different method to unlock the passion for conservation.
And I think shifting our mindset too. You talked earlier about the nursery you're planting and how, I've seen your saplings and they're very small right now, but they're all seeds of hope. and they're designed for next generations, not even necessarily our kids, but their kids. And so I think it's getting our generation also to sort of shift out of that mentality of what's right in front of us, that instant fix. And how do we start living truly in we're borrowing for generations down the road? So that may be a shift.
Yeah, it's very much getting away from that. Yeah, getting away from that sort of instant gratification and sort of plan for the future. As you say, I won't see the fruits of my labor. I might see a little bit of it, but my kids or my grandkids might be able to see some of those trees actually look like trees. But you can see it in the sort of in your management style. On the reserve, we can see it. If you change the management style, you can increase or improve the habitats. But again, there's very few things in nature that give you instant reward. A lot of it's slow process, but you've got to have the sort of foresight to see, this is what it's going to look like, and we will have made a difference.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite tree?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the baobab tree is one of my favorite trees. That's the one that with a massive, big, thick trunk that looks like it's planted upside down. They're an interesting tree, and I have a really tiny one in my garden. It's at least taller than me, but I'll never see it look like a tree. But there's so many different trees, but that's quite an iconic species, I think.
How about a favorite bird?
Well, that's another. Well, a crowned eagle would be the one, but again, there are also some very beautiful birds. But I think crowned eagle is special, but also goes back to my home where I grew up. We have a pair of crowned eagles just down the way with a nest, and so every day they would be calling and circling over the house. It was just a special sighting and a special call that I'll always remember.
Is there a specific animal that you look forward to as you're going around the reserve? Is there one that you're always on the lookout for that still brings you joy when you see it?
I love seeing suni, which are this tiny little antelope, barely a foot tall or foot high. So they're always a treat to see. They're hard to see, but they're always a treat to see. But I like the smaller animals, if that makes sense, because they're generally harder to see, but they're special little things.
It's wonderful. And last question for today, what's bringing you hope these days?
Hope, number one, in conservation is seeing what all the primates are achieving, which is great because, there are a lot of areas that are struggling, that are government funded, where the funding isn't available or the staffing isn't available. But being in this area and seeing how many private places are there and they're talking to each other, and, it'd be great if we can join them all together. But we can see the incredible work that the private conservation, organizations are doing. That gives me a lot of hope for the future for our animals. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And for conservation in the area.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Adventures in Learning podcast. Please give my love to everybody over there with Wild Tomorrow, and hopefully I'll be back to see you all very soon.
Thank you so much. I will do so, and I look forward to taking you for some more drives again in the future.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Adventures in Learning podcast with your host, Dr. Diane. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe, download, and let us know what you think, and please tell a friend. If you want the full show notes and the pictures, please go to drdianeadventures.com. We look forward to you joining us on our next adventure.